fine. It's a belief system. He's allowed to believe it, and people are allowed to vote for it. But if liberals deny it, like he's just going through a goth phase, they're going to lose more elections. This is not a communist country. It turned one of Latin America's richest countries into one of its poorest. Low wages, high inflation, shortages, outages, 8 million people fleeing. If you think New York can somehow reinvent this wheel, you're in for a rude awakening. Zoran can't make your wishes come true. You're thinking of Zoltar.
Is finally unfolding. Bill Maher is pulling back the curtain on what he believes is the real reason the Democratic Party's strategy keeps stumbling. With the ongoing ICE debate dominating headlines, many assumed the DNC's public image would gain momentum. Instead, polling suggests it's slipping. A lot of Americans are wondering why. Maher says he understands the root cause, and his explanation might catch you off guard. So if you're ready for direct, unfiltered political analysis, hit that subscribe button and let's break down what's really happening beneath the surface.
Let me tell you about the story that liberal algorithms locked out. Her name is Sia Weaver, and if you ask anyone in the blue sky bubble who that is, they'll look at you like a turkey looking up at the rain. But she's kind of important in New York, being Major Mamdani's chief of the Office to Protect Tenants, and since Mamdani's big issue is the rent's too damn high, yes, he stole this guy's act. It's a very key appointment in the most important city in the country, which is also our financial center. It matters that the mayor stands by, and so I assume stands with, someone who says things like, if you don't believe in the government's sacred right to seize private property, it's over. Seize private property. Home ownership is racist. Elect more communists.
Maher begins by focusing on what he describes as the party's uneasy shift toward more progressive, far-left messaging. He argues this goes beyond campaign slogans, claiming that some voters interpret certain policy positions as leaning toward socialism. Critics counter that outspoken figures don't define the entire Democratic Party, and that it's unfair to characterize a national organization by the rhetoric of a few individuals. But Maher insists the issue is broader. He points to New York City, not just any city, but a global financial hub and a symbol of American capitalism. His warning is that if voters begin to believe such a city is embracing policies viewed as socialist, that perception alone could influence how the entire party is seen nationwide.
Private property, especially home ownership, is a weapon of white supremacy. Really? Even among the 20 million black Americans who own their own home? I mean, these are the kind of utterances I might forgive as something a dumb white girl said while she was at Bryn Mawr. Because it's the kind of privilege hating you can only learn for $95,000 a year. But these are statements made as an adult. Yes, for co-eds from elite private colleges, you're only a lesbian until graduation, but the communism lasts a lifetime.
Maher continues by suggesting that the Democratic strategy is faltering for a politically sensitive reason. Many Americans react strongly to language that resembles communism. He argues that even the label can spark concern among voters. For some, the term is associated with heavy government control, economic inefficiency, and restrictions on individual freedoms. Whether those associations are accurate or exaggerated, Maher believes dismissing them outright is politically risky. He notes that generations of Americans grew up during the Cold War, when communism was portrayed as a direct ideological opponent. As a result, even loose echoes of that language can create unease. In his view, ignoring those reactions or belittling them only widens the political divide and invites electoral consequences.
Democrats seem to be having this debate whether or not Mayor Mamdani is a socialist or a democratic socialist. Let me settle it. He's a straight-up communist. How do I know this? Well, I'm reading between the lines when one of his major advisors says, elect more communists.
Maher argues that when prominent politicians openly identify with socialist branding, it can affect how the broader party is perceived. He maintains that the issue isn't solely about policy proposals but about optics. When high-profile figures embrace platforms described by critics as socialist, opponents use that framing to characterize the entire party. According to Maher, that perception can be costly. He also observes that younger voters, often assumed to be uniformly progressive, are not always automatically supportive. Many millennials and Gen Z voters remain concerned about economic stability, job growth, inflation, and long-term opportunity. If policies appear too sweeping or economically risky, enthusiasm can cool quickly. His central point: once a political label takes hold, undoing it can become an uphill battle.
Fine, it's a belief system. He's allowed to believe it, and people are allowed to vote for it. But if liberals deny it, like he's just going through a goth phase, they're going to lose more elections. This is not a communist country.
Maher's argument has extended beyond opinion and into broader political discussion. On Real Time, he referred to certain rising politicians as representing a more explicitly socialist wing of the party and warned that Democrats risk losing future elections if they ignore how that branding resonates with voters. Polling data shows that while attitudes towards socialism have softened among some Democrats, a majority of Americans still express preference for capitalism over socialism. Among Republicans especially, the term carries strong negative connotations. Maher argues that if opponents successfully attach labels like radical or extreme without meaningful rebuttal, it could shape the political landscape heading into 2028 and beyond.
Turned one of Latin America's richest countries into one of its poorest. Low wages, high inflation, shortages, outages, 8 million people fleeing. If you think New York can somehow reinvent this wheel, you're in for a rude awakening. Zoran can't make your wishes come true. You're thinking of Zoltar.
As part of his argument, Maher references Venezuela's economic crisis as an example often cited in debates about aggressive state-led economic policies. Once one of Latin America's wealthiest economies, Venezuela experienced severe contraction, inflation, and hardship over the past decade. Today, its GDP is a fraction of that of the United States, whose economy remains one of the largest and most diversified in the world. Maher emphasizes the contrast, noting that America's economic strength is rooted in democratic institutions, private enterprise, and market-driven innovation. His warning is not that reform is inherently dangerous, but that dramatic structural overhauls can carry unintended political and economic consequences.
Democratic socialism is like a dating profile. Things look great until you meet up in the real world. For example, Bernie Sanders, his big thing was always bringing single-payer health care to our country of 340 million. But when liberal, tie-dyed Vermont tried to do it for a population of 626,000, it collapsed like that poor in the Oval Office last week. Bernie, AOC, Mandani are not Democrats. They'll be the first to tell you that. They're democratic socialists, and that's a very different thing, and I don't think people know that yet.
Maher says he's simply describing what he sees. In his perspective, figures such as Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and others represent a more ideological wing that doesn't always align with the Democratic Party's traditional centrist image. Whether party leadership formally endorses that direction is open to debate, but Ma suggests the lack of clear distancing can shape public perception. He questions why stronger pushback hasn't emerged when rhetoric leans heavily toward democratic socialism or sweeping economic restructuring. According to him, silence can be interpreted as agreement, and in politics, perception often matters as much as official policy statements.
I don't think people realize we already have a lot of socialism. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, unemployment insurance, food stamps, veterans benefits, Pell Grants, COVID-era payments, farm subsidies, disability payments, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, corporate bailouts, and the jobs program that is building weapons the Pentagon doesn't even want. All that is socialism, much of it appropriate to soften the edges of capitalism, but the DSA, are radicals about this concept, and radical economic policy is always ineluctably married to radical social policy. Their platform, for example, calls for completely open borders. They're for what Biden was doing, but more.
At the same time, Maher acknowledges that American democracy already includes elements sometimes described as social programs: public schools, Social Security, Medicare, and infrastructure investment. These systems blend capitalism with limited safety nets designed to serve the public good. His argument isn't that all collective policy is harmful. Rather, he draws a distinction between maintaining balance and pursuing large-scale systemic change. While the idea of expanded guarantees and economic equality can sound appealing in theory, he argues that implementation can be complex. Incentives, bureaucracy, and efficiency all shift when government roles expand. His broader caution is about weighing potential trade-offs carefully before embracing sweeping transformation.
Petrified of COVID, masking 2-year-olds who never would have died from it and keeping schools closed for far too long. They're definitely afraid of their kids, who from time immemorial have always come up with bad ideas. Their kids. Thinking up stupid shit is what they do. But parents used to tell them, that's ridiculous. The world doesn't work that way. Not today's parents. They say, you're right, honey. Gender is just a social construct. Please, sometimes your mother and I forget which one of us has.
Maher also revisits cultural debates that he believes contributed to past democratic setbacks. He argues that strong emphasis on identity politics and ideological litmus tests may have alienated moderate voters. In his assessment, rather than recalibrating toward the political center, some factions appear to be pushing further left, both culturally and economically. Maher warns that doubling down on positions perceived as polarizing could narrow the party's appeal instead of broadening it. He maintains that national elections are often decided by independents and moderates, not by ideological extremes. If leaders misinterpret prior losses and respond by moving further from the center, he suggests they risk repeating the same strategic mistakes on a larger scale.
I don't know if we're still banning TikTok. That was before we changed the rule in America to Trump decides what's a law. But I know it wouldn't even be an issue if parents would sack up and tell their kids to get off the phone. Democrats are still afraid of the mean girls who police their far-out fringe. Massachusetts Congressman Seth Moulton had a perfect score on LGBTQ issues from the Human Rights Campaign. But when he said, I have 2 little girls, I don't want them getting run over on a playing field by a male or formerly male athlete, his own campaign manager quit.
Ultimately, Maher's message centers on political perception. He believes branding and messaging can determine a party's success or failure. Whether it's progressive cultural debates, the prominence of democratic socialist figures, or the reluctance to firmly define boundaries, he sees patterns that could affect voter confidence. His argument is not about rejecting reform or ignoring inequality. It's about understanding the broader electorate. The United States has historically combined social programs with a strong market economy. When voters sense that balance shifting too sharply, they respond. Maher's closing warning is straightforward. Adapt to the concerns of the wider public, or risk learning the same lessons again at the ballot box. And that wraps up today's breakdown. If you found this analysis insightful, be sure to like the video and subscribe for more in-depth political discussions.